Carbonman. Written and recorded by D.N. Chow. Episode 1. Chapter 1. They locked eyes. That was the problem. It wasn't Jett's usual route home, but after playing an away game and missing the team bus, he had to cross the gap, the rusted suspension bridge spanning the narrowest part of Rollins River, the torrential brown industrial artery of the city of Flexington. Seeing the man, layered up for winter, standing there, on the other side of the railing, gripping the mesh fence behind himself, was incongruous to what one expects to see on a mundane walk home. It wasn't until the man turned his head, and his tired red eyes met Jett's, that Jett crossed the point of no return. It was a loaded look, full of emptiness. The man's tears had seeped into his cheeks, like ancient rivers, leaving behind stinging skin, further punished by the cool breeze. He ripped his eyes away, ashamed to be seen by a boy, and severed the moment of connection between the two strangers. Then, he shook his head, as if to put the inconvenience of being witnessed aside, and let go of the fence, falling face first into the raging water that had eaten so many souls. Jett froze for a moment, before rushing to the edge and dangling his head over. He hoped to see a body resurface, but the man's heavy woolen overcoat continued to help him find comfort in the depths of winter. Now, hours later, Jett sits off to the southern mouth of the bridge under a polyester blanket, recounting this story to the police. They take great care of him, being who he is. Jett's eyes are on the river, lit by a full moon and city lights. It's not enough for the police to launch a recovery mission, though, and it's not exactly pragmatic. He sips on a hot chocolate given to him by Captain Canaggio, who showed up the moment he got word that Phan's kid was witness to a jump. He's a tall, greying man, still as solid as a pile of bricks wrapped in a stack of cinder blocks, and with a touch just as soft. He stands over the top of Jett, with one ear on the kid's words, and the other listening out for the kid's dad. A black SUV swings around the corner and crunches the nearby gravel. Here he is, immaculate in a black tuxedo. He steps out, driving his right foot into the ground and launching into an authoritative gait. He straightens his jacket and strides towards the clump of officers surrounding Jett. "Bobby Phan," Captain Canaggio says, holding his hand up for a bro clasp. Bobby and the captain embrace. "Mayor Proto give you the night off?" "Yeah, right. I've got an hour to get this one home, and then it's back to the fundraising thingy," Bobby says. "So who's got the mayor's back while you're here having a bludge?" another heavyset officer asks. "Well, like who's keeping an eye on the waitresses now that no one's keeping an eye on the mayor?" Captain Canaggio adds. Bobby shakes his head and laughs. "I've told him not to move from his seat, and if he needs to go potty, he has to hold it in till I get back." "Tell me, are the rumours true?" "Yeah." "Has he told you where the bodies are buried?" asks the other cop. Bobby clears his throat, stands a little taller, and puts on a mock serious face. "Mayor Proto denies all allegations put forward by his political adversaries in what can only be described as a witch hunt. Thank you. No more questions." He and his mates laugh before Bobby turns his eyes to the river. "So another jumper, eh?" "5th in 5 months, mate. Must be the full moon," Captain Canaggio says. Should rename the bridge." The stocky cop clicks his fingers, struck by thought. "The trampoline." "You've got the mayor's ear, Bobby. We'll all chip in for the new plaque," Canaggio adds. The old cops laugh away, just like the old days. "Suppose I should check in with him," Bobby says, thumbing in the direction of his son. He walks over to Jett, who is shaking under his blanket. "Come on, get in the car." Good Nights with Kirk Knight drones as they drive home. "You're with KK, the DJ barks. Then his voice ramps up, as if the air is sucked from his lungs into his throat with a turbocharger. Jett can feel the spit hit the microphone as KK rips into single mothers for their love of welfare and poor life choices. The dial never changes in his father's car. 7:63 a.m, where talkback bites back against political correctness. Jett glances over at his dad, who nods with a sneer as Kirk Knight tells it as it is. The invective is broken by an advertisement for Family Values funeral homes, where loved ones come home for good. "So did you win?" Bobby asks. "Yes, Dad." "How many tries?" 4 tries to 2. "How many did you score?" "None." "None?" his dad says, turning his head and taking his eyes off the road. "You should be getting the ball more. You're the best attacking weapon they've got. You're the strongest and fastest, and you ain't scared of the bigger guys." He shakes his head. "I'll have a word to your idiot coach for leaving you behind as well. Hasn't he heard of a head count?" Jett squirms and clutches at his stomach. It wasn't his coach's fault that he missed the bus. The tight chest and gut aches he's been having recently mean that even a short bus trip is like riding a roller coaster with a busted wheel. So, when it was time to leave, he told Coach Tuft that his dad was on the way to pick him up. Coach Tuft, not wanting to have to deal with the wrath and unsolicited coaching advice of Mr. Phan, didn't ask any questions. Jett thinks about elaborating and saying, "I didn't score a try this week, Dad. I'm trying to share the ball around. But I did set up every single one, including one with a double cutout pass." But he's not in a mood to talk, and it wouldn't placate his dad anyway. "Why are you so quiet?" his dad asks him as they almost reach home. Then he realises his gaffe. He takes a breath. "Just make up for it by scoring 2 tries next week, alright?" "Thanks, Dad," Jett says. Super dad to the rescue, he thinks to himself. They pull up out the front of the Phan family home. Bobby's eyes are on the digital display. He's due back in 15 minutes, so he doesn't bother pulling into the driveway. Jett gets out of the car as his dad turns up the radio. KK echoes a caller's sentiments about the traditional family unit. "Damn straight," Bobby mutters in agreement with the caller. Jett closes the door, and his dad zooms off back to work. He unlatches the front gate and closes it behind himself, with a slight clang. He walks up the flagstone pathway and has to time his steps as the rotating sprinklers dance in their water-restricted time slot. Judging by their lush lawn, their water is plumbed straight from the Garden of Eden. He reaches the front door and pats himself down for his keys. He finds them in his left pants pocket and lets himself in. "Sweetheart," his mother Gail says, walking through the hallway. Jett perks up and is about to respond when she continues walking. "Don't be so precious. I send hundreds of texts and emails every day. I don't have time to double-check every single word of every single one of them." He notices the ever-persistent earpiece in her left ear and realises that she is still on the clock. As she always drums into her children, the sun never sets on the hustle. She drifts into the spare room, which she has commandeered as her office, and closes the door behind herself. Jett goes to the kitchen and drops his bag on the floor. Then he opens the freezer drawer, revealing this week's prepped meals. Tuesday, neatly written on a piece of masking tape no bigger than it needs to be. His brother Bruce is home, as evidenced by the gap in the neat row of plastic containers. He's probably holed up in his room on his iPad. Jett grabs a plastic brick and microwaves it. He sits on one of the tall stools at the kitchen bench. He feels the pangs of hunger, but his stomach is still stirred by the afternoon's event. That, and the recent gut aches, makes every spoonful a laboured, mechanical process. The food sits in his mouth for seconds before he has the energy to chew it. A hot shower couldn't wash away the knot inside him. Now it's 10:30, and he flips around on his bed like a fish on a pier. They locked eyes. That is the problem, he realises. It's as if the look they shared was linked by a limp low voltage, a grey bolt of electricity that seemed to switch on a circuit inside Jett. Head, heart and gut are all firing together. He can't stop thinking of the jumper, and it's as if the man's last moments of anguish have possessed him. Is it merely the knowledge of another's suffering, or guilt that grinds his guts? No, it can't be guilt, he thinks to himself. Jett is fast. Probably the fastest 12-year-old in the team. but even he couldn't have got there in time. But then again, he could have. Of course he could have. Jett is smart and body literate. On the field, he knows where the ball is going before it gets there, and in the ring, the slightest twitch of his sparring partner's shoulder has him slipping and countering before the arm can even straighten into a jab. He saw this coming. Why else would a man stand on the wrong side of a bridge? Eyes that red must have spilled rivers, and a look that resigned means the light of the soul cannot travel farther than the end of its nose. That's what's keeping him up tonight. That body was destined for the river. But maybe he had a chance to stop the flow of events. He sits up, looks out his window, and reads the scene. A full moon, a clear sky, the trough of winter. 5 jumpers in the past 5 months. There may be darker hours yet to come. There is no sneaking out of the Phan household at night. Stealth is not necessary when the sentinels only watch the metrics of grades and trophies. Jett simply gets into his thermals, walks out the back door, and hops on his bike. His full-face downhill helmet sits on the end of his handlebars, his last ride having been a tree-lined blur through Hartman's Pass. It's probably the best option anyway, as it lessens the bite of the evening chill. The gap isn't so ugly at night. The darkness also hides the brown mark of Rollins River, and the reflected moon embellishes it like a diamond necklace hanging off a corpse. Jett shivers in the dark, away from a cover-busting street lamp. He warms his hands with his breath. He checks his phone. 2:30. A few hours of suicide watch has popped some of the bubbles, eating away at his stomach. Enough for him to sleep at least. He jumps back on his bike, and is about to drive his right foot into its pedal when he hears hurried footsteps. Something tells him they're female. He turns around. He's right. Lit by moon and lamplight, a sobbing woman rips off her coat as if it's covered in ants and drops it behind herself. Then she latches onto the railing and gets one knee over. Not this time, Jett thinks to himself. He drops his bike, braces over, and snatches her hand, stealing a meal from the jaws of death. Startled, she rips her arm away from him and clutches it close to her body. She squints at him warily, despite the boy being less of a threat than the murky river. "Who are you?" she asks, backing up against the fence. "Nobody." His unbroken voice surprises her. "What's a kid like you doing here in the middle of the night?" "I saw someone jump off the bridge today." "It wouldn't be a full moon in Flexington without one." "That's why I'm here." She shakes her head. Even kids have nothing to live for. "No, that's not what I meant. I came just in case..." The screech of tyres cuts him off. "Go!" she shouts, pointing into the darkness. Jett looks at the car, speeding towards them. "You need to leave," she says, with urgency. "If he's the reason for you being on the wrong side of the bridge, I'm not going anywhere." "Do you want to be the one in the river?" Jett swallows. The car skids to a halt, and the driver door flings open so hard that it bounces back, forcing the driver to block it with his palms. A stocky menace, with a shaved head and more ink than a pen factory, gets out and doesn't bother closing the door. He leaves the car running right there on the bridge. Sure, it's the middle of the night, but Jett senses the man would have done the same in the middle of the day. The personalised number plate is just as garish as the man's tattoos, the most polluting of which is the Old English scrawled across his neck. "Who the hell is he?" the man shouts. "Nobody," the woman answers with fire in her voice. "Get in the car." "No, I said get in the car." "Don't hurt him, Hector. He's just a kid." "Just get in the car." "I'll get in the car if you promise not to hurt him." "Fine." "Promise?" "Yeah." She gives Jett an apologetic look, before picking up her coat. She rips open the passenger door and slumps into the seat. "So who the hell are you?" Are you going to hurt her? The man walks away without answering. He gets back into his car, slams the door shut, and burns rubber as he reverses back in the direction from which he came, while Jett watches on, with his feet glued to the bridge. Did he just save a life, or extend a living hell? It eats away at him as he thinks about what to do now. Action speaks louder than idle regret, so Jett closes his eyes and focuses. Two things come to mind. One, the personalised number plate, and two, his father's blatant disregard for network security. Lady killer, I'm coming for you. Now is the time for stealth. After placing his bike against the wall by the back door, Jett slinks into his house and creeps to the family study. The cheap pine laminate desk is empty. Damn. His dad must have taken his laptop to bed. Jett tiptoes down the hallway and takes a deep breath as he reaches his parents' bedroom door. He turns the knob and peeks in. His father is sound asleep, but his mother is up. Goddamn hustle. So much for stealth. May as well grab a sledgehammer. Mum, he says. Jett, she says, startled. What are you doing up? It's a school night. I couldn't sleep. What are you doing up? Work. Go back to bed, she says, peering over her black-framed glasses. He edges closer to the bed. It's huge. A Super King, 203 centimetres squared. He glances towards his father's side, who sleeps with his back to his wife, clutching his laptop. Dad looks a bit uncomfortable. Your father works long shifts and worked hard to get where he is. Being head of security for the mayor is the secondment of a lifetime. Jett walks around to the other side of the bed and reaches down for the laptop. What are you doing? Just trying to make Dad more comfortable. You'll do no such thing. Leave him be and go back to bed. Jett sighs and turns to go. As he does so, his dad snorts like a chainsaw and rolls onto his back, releasing the laptop. It slides off his arm, and Jett grabs it before it hits the floor. Just in the nick of time. I'll leave it in his office. He places it on the desk, flips it open, and presses the on button. He wheels on the BIOS, the hard drive, and every individual transistor to hurry up and get this boot sequence done with. After what seems like an age to him, he is greeted with the logo of the Flexington Police Department. Beneath it is a username and password prompt. His fingers flitter over the keyboard as R.Phan grows across the input field. Then anonymous dots appear as he punches in the password. He hits enter, but is met by dreaded red text. He tries Cobra again, uppercase C, but this time with 124 after it. The screen changes, and he thanks his father for the sequential manner in which he updates his password. Finally, it's his cue. The password prompt that will take him straight into the guts of the Flexington Police Department. He figures his father would have updated this password at the same time as the laptops, and goes for 124. It works. He runs the cursor across various drop-down menus, and finds what he's looking for. Check license plate. He clicks it, taking him to a simple screen asking for a single input. LDYKLR. He taps the enter key. A circle spins as digital eyes scan the archives. Then it appears. Hector Hyde, 24 years old, and most importantly, only a 15-minute ride away. Jett tears through the night, warmed by his full-face helmet and a hot dose of adrenaline. He runs through his plan. He'll observe from the best position he can find and, well, that's it. He turns into Ashburn Crescent, a wide street with single-story houses. He slows his pedalling, and soon the car comes into view. Parked in a driveway that leads to a fibro house, with 3 other cars parked on the lawn, all in various states of disrepair. One is up on bricks, another has been eaten by the grass, and another has all its windows broken. Jett swallows. He gets off his bike, walks it to a tree on the nature strip, and leans it against the trunk. He keeps his helmet on and creeps up to the lounge room. The blind is drawn, but it glows at the window frame. Someone is up. He edges closer and cups his hands around his eyes, but the bottom of the blind is pulled down too far to see anything. There is no sound with which to work either. Is this good or bad? He wonders to himself. But he's done what he can. There is a natural limit to the real-world effectiveness of a 12-year-old's good intentions, and here, on the front lawn of a derelict house, is as far as his heart can take him. He turns and trudges back to his bike, knowing that whatever happens from here is between the woman and her boyfriend. He goes to grab his handlebars. Then bang! He's smashed from behind by what must be a torpedo. He hits a footpath hard, and is thankful that his helmet protects his face from the concrete, but his hands sting from breaking the fall, and his back is being eaten inside out from a bruise that is growing like wine on carpet. Facing the ground with the assailant riding his back, Jett's Brazilian jiu-jitsu instincts kick in. He manages to push up, roll over, and face his attacker. The dull glow of a nearby street lamp offers enough of a look. The old English tattoo across the neck confirms the identity of the tackler. Hector Hyde has full mount, so Jett pushes against him and creates enough of a gap underneath the man's crotch to fit a knee through. Then Jett sweeps him, reversing their position. On top and in half guard, their chests press hard against each other's. Suddenly, a surge of energy sucks them together, as if magnetizing them. The violent intent dissipates. Their hearts beat in time, amplifying the rhythm of life itself. They are on another plane. A whole other dimension. Then Jett comes to, and releases Hector, and sits back on his own heels. He lumbers to his feet, and offers a hand, which Hector willingly clasps. Jett hoists him up, and they stand together, both sheepish over what has just happened. "I'm sorry I trespassed," Jett says, his voice filtered by his helmet. "You're the kid from the bridge," Hector says. "Did you follow me?" Jett nods. "What did you just do to me?" "I don't know. I feel different." "So do I." "Where is the girl?" "Home." Jett glances at the house. "Not here. Her home." "She doesn't live with you?" "She lives with our mother." "Oh crap," Jett thinks to himself. "Your brother and sister?" "Yeah." "Oh God, you thought we were... Sorry. You thought I was a wife beater, didn't you?" "I'm so sorry. I ain't my father. I've done things I ain't proud of, but I'd never lay hands on a woman." "Is she okay?" "If she takes her meds, she might be. What are you doing chasing cars anyway?" I don't know what I'm doing." "Yeah, well, you shouldn't. Especially ones like mine. But you got some solid stones to come this far." Only then does it hit Jett. This could have ended badly. Without his helmet, his face would be all over the pavement. "Sorry. And sorry I trespassed." Hector nods once, accepting Jett's apology. "I go for a walk to clear my head and see someone on my lawn. You're lucky I ain't packing tonight, 'cause normally I am." "I'm so sorry." Jett wants to leave now. He angles his body towards his bike, but his feet point straight at Hector and cement him in place. They look at each other awkwardly for a beat. "What's going on?" Hector asks. "I really don't know," Jett answers. "Take care of yourself. And your sister." Hector's lips tremble. His face fights hard, but his tears win out, sending his shoulders shuddering. He slaps his giant inked right hand over his eyes in an attempt to hide his shame. Now Jett's feet find their path. Jett moves towards Hector and holds him. Chest to chest, Hector feels as if gentle hands cup his heart, keeping it from shattering into irretrievable shards. Hector takes his hand away from his eyes and wraps both arms around Jett. The embrace is welcomed, cherished, and natural. The bond feels fraternal, lifelong, deep and elemental. Questions of trust were answered long before they were asked. Jett soaks up everything Hector throws at him, every tear, every tremor, every wail, and says nothing in return. He doesn't know what else to do, and simply holding him feels natural enough. Soon Hector's body settles, and his breath slows. He lifts his face off Jett's shoulder and looks him in his eyes through the gap in the helmet. For Hector, it's as if half his load has been taken. For Jett, it's as if all of Hector's feelings are transposed onto him. "Sorry, kid," he says. Jett shakes his head, to say there are no sorries needed. Hector then trudges up the driveway and disappears around the back of the house. Jett releases a sigh and stands still. His gut is settled, his chest is loosened, the night is silent, and his heart, which slows its thumping, seems to have found a secret chamber. What the hell just happened? Jett thinks to himself. Chapter 2. Patrick Pollock, 29, web developer. Colleagues shocked. Never saw it coming. The news of the body bores away at Jett as he walks to the bus stop with his brother, Bruce. Bruce is in his own world, as usual, nodding his head to the grey and gold beats enveloping him. Bruce is a unit. What he lacks in height he makes up for in width, squareness of jaw, and chunkiness of calf. While Jett got the fast twitch, lean genes of his European mother, Bruce inherited grunt and torque from an 8-cylinder diesel engine that must have been hijacked by his Vietnamese father. The now 16-year-old has been a key player in the open age team's forward pack since he was 15, thanks to his mobility and cardio. They always take this route to Flexington South High School, but today feels different to Jett. His gut aches and chest pains return like acne. The first spot is barely noticeable, but signals what is to come. Jett tries to add some spring to each stride, hoping to shake it off. But the feeling spreads as they reach the bus stop on the corner of Buckley and Grace. While waiting for their ride, he focuses on his breath to at least keep a facade of composure. The whole journey on what must be the oldest bus in town is a fight. Every pothole stirs his insides. The traffic compresses him from every direction. The grey sky does the same from above, drizzling the streets without any enthusiasm. There is a solitary quality about the chill, as if the air conducts loneliness through its cold touch. The students on the bus are normally loud and rowdy, but today they mirror the dull weather. The bus slows and stops at the shelter on York Street. It's a girl in a Flexington South High School uniform, from Bruce's grade. She always keeps to herself, and even in summer, she bathes in winter. Her skin is pale, her light blue eyes disinterested, and her arms always clutch a folder close to her chest, as if to keep guard. But today she does something different. After tapping on, her eyes catch Bruce's, and she smiles. Not a full pearly whites out, "Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to see you" smile, but it is a discernible and deliberate twitch of the lips, letting light pass both in and out of her. Jett glances over at Bruce, who breaks eye contact and returns his gaze back out the window. They pull up at the school bus bay and file out. Jett elbows his brother. "Why didn't you talk to her?" he asks. Bruce doesn't get a chance to answer when a group of girls call out, "Hey Lois, got any scoops for the Daily Planet?" They laugh, as if they've come up with the wittiest remark this side of Oscar Wilde. The girl from the bus presses her lips together and lifts her chin and walks straight towards the bunched up bullies. She drops a shoulder into the loudmouth, tipping her off balance. The bully regains her feet and launches straight for the girl, talons out, and rips at her tight ponytail. And it's on. Phones are whipped out like guns at a bank job. Soon, a mob swarms around them. The girls fight hard. Their arms flail like windmills, with some shots grazing. Then a bomb, drops from the heavens and connects with the bully's temple, sending her stumbling into the crowd, who throw her back into the Colosseum. Her friends join in, and the girl from the bus is jumped. She wraps her arms around her head, but the 5 bullies surrounding her find gaps in her defense. She drops to her knees, then cops a front kick that sends her onto her back. She gets into the fetal position and covers up her face. Jett looks to his brother. "We need to do something," he shouts. "I'm not hitting a girl," Bruce says. Jett races in and throws himself over the top of the girl, shielding her. He cops a shin in the ribs, and a few shots land on his backpack. And then, nothing. All of a sudden, he's yanked to his feet by his backpack. "You alright, bro?" Bruce says. Jett nods. The bullies back away. "Touch my brother again and we'll see what happens," he says to the girls, with his chest out. The crowd turns and heads for the front gate. Jett picks up the girl's folder, which had been dropped as the melee began, and extends a hand. He hoists her onto her feet and gives her the folder. "Are you okay?" Jett asks. "I'm fine, thank you," she replies, not only as if nothing had happened, but as if she enjoyed it. "You got some solid furries downstairs to jump in like that." Jett laughs at her poetic euphemism. "So do you." "That's because once we pass through the front gate into the realm of zero tolerance, their mouths go from 0 to 100, and I can't do a goddamn thing to shut them up. I'm surprised Ghislaine was stupid enough to talk smack in the wild out here." "You sure can throw them." She shrugs. She got up though. "You have to get them right on the button to keep them down. By the way, you did the right thing covering up like that. Sometimes you just have to take your medicine." "Check you out, $1 million baby." Jett smirks. Chapter 3. "I bet you didn't even feel it," Rain says. "I'm just glad she's okay," Jett replies. "Lucky they weren't boys having a go. You would have wiped the floor with them, wouldn't you?" "Oh, let's not get too carried away, mate." "What's her name anyway?" "Actually, I have no idea." "Can you find out for me? I kinda got a thing for older women," Rain says with a wink. They only met this year, but have since become close. They're an odd pairing. Rain is unusually tall for his age, but it offers few evolutionary advantages at this stage of his development. What he has in height is brought down by form. He's an undefined dark plank, with the core strength of a dishcloth. But his teeth are perfect and always beaming a smile, reflecting his insides, which are as bright and constant as the sun. Jett always loves his company, and his unabashed interest in waste management. He is unapologetically himself, and is as smart as Jett is athletic. People don't know what to make of him. In any other situation, he would be ridiculed as a nerd. But his incongruous pairing with the handsome and socially credentialed Jett affords him diplomatic immunity. Science is their favourite topic, but their least favourite class. Mrs. Valens is too quiet and monotone. Short, grey, and mentally retired, she offers nothing but rote learning. For some reason, learning the periodic table off by heart is the most important thing to her. The class drones on with empty voices that smudge each word with the next. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon. "Man, check out Jett!" Bonnie Cooper, the class clown, shouts out from the desk next to Jett's. Chairs scrape the floor as excited students make the most of the interruption, springing to their feet and rushing around him. "What?" Jett says. Mrs. Valens puts her hand to her mouth. "Jett, I think you'd best go to the sick bay," she says. "I feel fine." "You probably aren't." "Dude, you need to go," Rain says, eyes as wide as his glasses. Jett takes his phone out of his bag and turns on his selfie camera. "Oh gosh," he says. The sickbay was an afterthought. Whoever designed the layout of the school administrative block didn't consider that children can and do fall ill. Small, cold, and windowless, it has children praying for recovery. The daybed is just long enough for Jett, so taller students are forced to pull their knees in. He doesn't mind it too much, though. Hives aren't contagious, just aesthetically displeasing. He checks his face with his selfie camera again. They faded, though his gut and chest are still a violent storm. He steps out of the room, closes the door behind him, and takes a seat in the hallway, where the air isn't so stale. With his arms wrapped around his belly, he drops his head back and lets out a mushroom cloud of a sigh. What is it this time, Olive? He hears the office lady say. My stomach, comes a reply from a familiar voice. Jett lifts his head in anticipation. Again? Yes, again. Can I see Miss Earthman? She isn't a nurse. I don't need a nurse. But you just said you have a sore stomach. It's anxiety. Miss Earthman's with another student right now. How long? I don't know. I'll wait anyway. The girl rounds the corner and enters the hallway. Oh, it's you, she says. It must be my lucky day, the girl says as she smiles at Jett. Hi, I'm Jett, Jett says. Olive. Thanks again for saving me this morning, she says and extends a hand. Jett takes it, smiles, and relishes her confident and gentle grip. Are you waiting to see Miss Earthman too? She asks him. Who's Miss Earthman? The school counsellor. Jett's eyes widen. Yes. Yes, I am. I am going to see her. Is she good? Olive shrugs. I don't know. I keep having to go back. Oh, kidding. She's good. That's why I come back. Oh, that's how I know your brother. Jett's eyebrows almost reach his hairline. My brother sees, then the office door opens, cutting him off. A pale girl in a senior uniform sniffles as she comes out. Thank you, Emily. See you next week, the girl says. See you, Mads, comes a gentle voice from inside the office. Jett stands up without delay. Bye, Olive. See you on the other side, she says, before putting her knuckles out for a fist bump. Jett, a little shocked, complies with a light touch. Then he rushes through the doorway, to the surprise of the counsellor. The room is tranquil. Off-white walls, ferns in the two furthest corners of the room, an oval wooden coffee table with a green vase housing oriental lilies and a laptop, a lazy-boy and an ottoman make up the space. He closes the door behind himself. Oh, hello. I didn't realise I had someone scheduled, she says, sitting down on the ottoman and checking her laptop. She's beautiful. Tall, friendly brown eyes, brown hair that sits on her shoulders, and a natural, unexaggerated smile that invites the starkest truths. You didn't. I'm Jett. I'm in Year 7. Hi, Jett. I'm Miss Earthman. But you can call me Emily. What can I do for you? I don't know exactly. Please, sit. He sits down on the lazy boy opposite her. Is everything we talk about confidential? He asks. Yes, but in serious cases of child abuse, I am legally required to inform community services. Is that okay with you? Yes. He swallows and takes a deep breath. Something happened to me last night. Emily nods, urging him on. It started in the afternoon. Well, something's been bothering me for a while. Stomach aches, chest pains, that sort of thing. Then yesterday, after the game, I saw a man jump from the gap. Emily's pupils dilate. What was that like for you? Jett shakes his head, unsure what to say. Terrible. But it's more than that. Before he jumped, we locked eyes. And something happened to me. It's like I could feel everything around me. And then Well, to cut a long story short, I hugged someone else, by accident. We were actually fighting. You see, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I held him tight. And when we were on the ground, it's like our hearts were touching. Emily sits up taller, interest piqued. Go on. We bonded. Just like that. I could really feel inside him. What happened after that? I went home. It was the middle of the night. You mentioned you had chest pains. How long has that been going on? Just a couple of weeks, maybe? Actually, 3 weeks. It first came on before we played Flexington North, which was 3 rounds ago. She nods to herself and stares into nowhere, mulling over the information. Do you believe me, Emily? Oh, yes. I believe you. Wow, she says, overcome with emotion. Tears well and trickle down as she sniffles. Are you okay? Yes. I can't believe there is another. I'll probably get fired for this, but can I hug you? Jett nods hungrily. They both stand. Emily rounds the coffee table with her arms out, as if welcoming home a long-lost friend. Then bang! Their impending embrace is interrupted by the sound of gunshots from all around. They drop to the floor, pinning themselves flat to the rug. The door bursts open. Jett's heart jumps. He looks up and sees that it's Olive that's charged in. She slams the door shut and drives the lazy boy up against it as the gunfire continues. She then crawls under the coffee table, joining Jett and Emily on the floor. There must be multiple shooters. It's coming from everywhere, Olive shouts. The shots are even coming from above. Above? Jett thinks to himself. He stands up. Jett, what are you doing? Olive asks. He stares at the air conditioning vent in the ceiling. They're not gunshots, he says. Emily and Olive look at each other, before pushing up off the floor and getting to their feet. They stand on each side of Jett and tune their ears in around them. You're right. It sounds like firecrackers, Emily says. Give me a boost, Olive says, putting her right hand on Jett's shoulder. He interlocks his fingers and holds his hands as a platform for her. She steps onto them and he grimaces as he lifts her. Emily, she says, extending her hand. Emily grabs it and Olive puts her other hand on Jett's head and stands on his shoulders. She grabs the air conditioning vent and flips it down. She sticks her hand inside, retracts it, and sprinkles red shredded paper onto the coffee table. She sniffs her hand. Smells like New Year's down at the harbour, Olive says. A few distant explosions pop, losing their potency before they peter out. Emily is about to speak when the PA system crackles to life.
Good morning, teachers and students of Flexington South High School,
says a digitally muffled voice.
Did I scare you? Is your face flat to the floor like a dead dog's? Good. Get used to it. Because a cull is coming. You see, the problem with nature is that it has no will. Existence is its only goal. At first, the spark of life was a miracle. It faced down all the elements like a strip club bouncer with an out-of-control bucks night. And now, here we are, Flexington. This is what has become of life. Billions of years of evolution. For this, there is too much life. Incompatible life. Life that is here purely because it was born and can find a teat. Life used to have to pay its own way. But now it gets fat off someone else's efforts. It is time for a purge. Nature was once the arbiter. From asteroids, plagues, great floods, bushfires burning off the dead wood, it had its way. But society also has its way, with its emergency services and social programs, so even the most useless amongst us can simply breed on. Therefore nature needs a helping hand. and human hands can pull triggers that nature cannot. Bang, bang.
The buzz of feedback returns to the speaker. Staff and students of Flexington South High School, this is Principal Katz. I have absolutely no idea what just happened. Rest assured, that will not happen again. Now all students are to remain in their classrooms until the police have determined that no threat remains. The sound drops from the speakers, leaving an awkward void. Jett, Olive, and Emily look at each other. This is exactly what I've been talking about, Emily, Olive says. A look of concern comes over Emily's face. Jett's eyes dart between Emily and Olive. What do you mean? He asks. Everything we discuss in this room is confidential, right? Olive says, emphasizing the secrecy of what she is about to divulge. Jett nods. She takes a deep breath and lets out a sigh. I'm Raven. What's that? You haven't heard of Raven On? There were flies all around the school last month. No? Really? Yes. You mean yes, you really haven't? Or yes, you do recall the plethora of coloured A4 size posters that I may have got for free after hacking into the staff print server? The first one. Olive plants her hands on her hips. You know, I had 100 views last month. Is that a lot? Look, the point is, my blog is dedicated to important investigative work. Like what? Well, nothing yet. But this is the kind of story I want to be breaking. What is the story? The city is at boiling point. Emily knows it. I know it. We can feel it. It isn't going to take much for everything to explode. A bomb is going to go off. Literally. And this mayor has shortened the wick. You think the mayor is behind this? No, he's the front of it. He's the face, the grinning bastard, kissing babies with the same mouth that he uses to kiss the asses of the wingnuts who put him on the throne. But I swear, I'm going to do everything in my power to bring him down, Olive says, with the fire of a 15-year-old schoolgirl. And Emily's going to help me. Olive, we've been through this, Emily says. You said you can feel it too, Emily. I said I can feel your frustration. I reflect. It's called reflective listening. But you know what's up. I'm the school counsellor. I'm always happy to hear you, but I'm certainly not able to take part in political activities. Ah, but you would if you could. That's not what I said. I know. You can't blame a girl for trying, Olive says, smiling. Emily smiles back. She adores Olive, the girl who holds her cards close to her chest, facing out. Well, I'm going to find out who is behind this, even if I have to do it myself. I don't think you should be poking around, Olive, Emily says. Why not? Every time I mention the mayor in one of our sessions, you make this face like he's stolen your toilet paper after you've had a curry. Olive, need I remind you that all aspects of our sessions are completely confidential, including whatever you perceive my expressions to be. Need I remind you that I also have a policy of mandatory reporting on serious cases of abuse? Because Mayor Proto has been spanking this city like a stepdad. Emily's eyes drift to the window. She rushes over. 6 police cars pull up, unleashing a swarm of shadows with shields, batons, and machine guns. The city's police force has been militarised, and no one even cares. Emily sighs. Stick to the school paper, because you don't know what you're dealing with. I'll help, Jett blurts out. Olive and Emily look at him in surprise. It was a reflex, like a cough to expel a cold, and it's just as relieving. The fist around his heart has loosened. I'm serious, Jett affirms. Olive smiles sympathetically. You're a sweet kid, and I appreciate what you did for me this morning. But I think you'd better stick to Pokemon, Olive says. All over the quadrangle, through every playground and every canteen line, recess is eaten by gossip and speculation about who was responsible for this morning's prank, the status to which it has been reduced. I bet it was one of the incels that hangs out at the bottom of the oval. How did they hijack the PA system? How many of them were there? And how long did it take? Because that's a heck ton of firecrackers. Jett and his group of boys stand under a jacaranda tree, like they always do. I don't even get what they were talking about, says Parky, Jett's friend from primary school, as he crunches his celery. I bet it's a teacher. How else could they get access to everything? Rain says. Mr. Bushman's marbles have rolled off a cliff, I reckon. He's always going on about how the youth of today need a good kick up the backside, Terry Poe says. Boomer's gonna boom, Parky says with a shrug. But he's not even that old. Looks it though. And he's a creep. Yeah, I wouldn't want him as a swimming coach, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I reckon he's got a wardrobe full of beige cardigans, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I reckon he's had all the skirting boards replaced in his house, with upskirting boards, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I've never seen him holding a stringed instrument, but I reckon he's a pretty experienced fiddler, if you know what I mean. What do you reckon, Jett? Jett? Jett looks up, startled. Overwhelmed yet partially alleviated of his recent anxieties, he was absent from the conversation, and instead pondering the events of the morning. He got as far as noting that he and Olive felt the same thing, possibly Emily too. He also wondered why Emily believed him about his experience so readily. Then there was the revelation that his seemingly invincible and emotionally vacant brother is getting counselling. But that train of thought has been derailed by Parky's question. Sorry, what was that? You off with the fairies, mate? Parky asks him. Leave him alone. He had hives, Rain says. Whenever I get hives, I can't think straight either. I have to go to the toilet, Jett says, before throwing his backpack over his right shoulder and scurrying off. As he crosses the quadrangle, he pulls out his phone. Hey Siri, who's raving on? Chapter 4. North-facing, Hart Harbour is a vacuum in winter. It sucks up northerlies, turning summer-loving restaurants and cafes into a dreary grey bowl. Today is one of those days, and the light sprinkle means that some establishments have shuttered early. The homeless have done the same. Friends Park, wet from the drizzle that lazily drifts from the bland sky, is empty. The bench that usually hosts chess and backgammon is claimed by puddles. Under the overpass, the men, they're all men, turn as they hear unfamiliar feminine footsteps. Even sirens can't draw their interest, as those blend into the soundscape like shadows in the dark. But high heels? No man forgets the sound of high heels. A dark, old, grey-bearded Indigenous man takes a bishop with his knight as he stands and smiles. Emily, he says, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? Wow, you're not opening with your let me be frank joke, Emily says with a smile. These guys said I start without my queen if I pull out that line, he says. It's good to see you, Frank, she says. Great to see you too, Emily. So what can I do for you? There's another, she says. Frank's eyes widen. I'm going to take a walk, boys. Then he tips over his king. Chapter 5. The bell rings. Jett slips and fires a simultaneous jab to the body, followed by a right body hook. Then he dances out of there like a ghost, back out of range, with his guard up. Coach Blaze likes what he sees. The chin is covered, unlike his other showboating protégés, who like to dangle their hands as low as their pants. The stocky old goateed warrior gives the nod, and Jett's partner, Tomo, a moustached 17-year-old Prince of the Cage runner-up, throws a right cross. Jett slips to his own left, and throws a right straight to the breadbasket, left hook to the ribs, and he's out of there just as quickly, mirroring what he did off the jab. His control is millimetre perfect, hitting his partner with a feather-light touch. They drill these counters till the bell sounds again. All right, lads, out of the ring and over to the mat. Jett, get in Tomo's guard. Let's work those escapes, Coach Blaze booms. Tomo slips between the ropes of the squared circle and jumps off the edge. He plonks himself down in the middle of the blue jigsaw mats and waits for Jett to get between his legs. Crap, Jett thinks to himself. The last time he rolled was with Hector on the council strip the previous night, resulting in that moment. And that is the last thing he needs right now. It's not that bonds aren't forged at Blazing Dragons. Countless hours of rolling, pad work, and punching each other in the face brings men and boys together like nails and wood. But last night was not the result of blood, sweat, and hiding fears. It was an instant supernatural cardiological entwining of two separate entities into a single emotional realm. How will his training partners react if every drill takes them to the deepest well of feeling? To turn every sparring session into a deep and meaningful would ruin the stable. Something the matter? Coach Blaze asks, noticing the shift in Jett's energy. Jett snaps out of his own head and turns to his coach. I think I need more work on my stand-up, coach. Alvez's boys make a boa constrictor look looser than a wet noodle. You need to drill your escapes. Can I take 5? Jett asks. Alvez's boys make marathon runners look like couch potatoes. You think they're going to give you even a split second? Jett takes a breath, knowing what could come next. Tomo spreads his legs, welcoming Jett into his guard. Jett gets on his knees, slightly out of range, before shuffling closer. Tomo extends his right hand and Jett slaps it, the sideways high five being the mat equivalent of touching gloves. Tomo bridges the small gap that remains and wraps his legs around Jett's waist. Jett keeps his posture upright. Tomo sits up and wraps his hands around the back of Jett's neck and tries to pull him down. Jett dips his head and circles out of his partner's grip. Then he drives his elbows into Tomo's inner thighs and forces his legs apart. With enough leverage, he pushes down on Tomo's left knee and frees his own leg, then does the same with the right. He takes full mount, and with a lightning quick spin, has an armbar. Tomo taps. They go again and again until it's time to free roll. Tomo goes hard. He ain't losing to a 12-year-old in a live grappling match. And Jett goes fast. He instinctively feels that it's not a good idea for just anyone to know what lies in his heart. It's a game of cat and even bigger cat, pawing, clawing, and sprawling, until the alpha pounces, breaking through the last line of defense, a too-late hip bump, with a double-leg takedown that lifts Jett to the heavens, before driving him into the lowest circle of hell. Tomo, not the biggest guy himself, feels at home in side mount. He flattens his chest on top of Jett's, trying to squeeze the wind out of him. Jett squirms and pushes as hard as he can, but the 17-year-old is too heavy, and knows how to deaden his weight. Jett thinks about tapping, but the warrior in him can't quit for discomfort. Then Tomo does him a favour, driving his forearm into Jett's throat, exchanging control for pain. With the tiny bit of space, Jett turns onto the side of his hip, shrimps away, and returns to his feet. He can see the anger on Tomo's face, having let the prey get away. Street fighting is all about aggression, but in the gym, combat is best served in measured doses. Tomo rushes in, thinking the same double-leg takedown will work again. Jett sprawls, and in one motion, gets his left arm under Tomo's neck and jumps, wrapping his legs around Tomo's waist. He squeezes hard and waits for the tap. Then he feels Tomo go limp. He lets go immediately and rolls away. Coach Blaze rushes over, and Tomo comes too. He tries to tackle Coach, not knowing where he is. Tomo, you were out! You were out! Look! It's me, Blaze says. Tomo looks at him, realising where he is. His face is red, more from embarrassment than oxygen deprivation. Jett offers a hand. Tomo bows and accepts it, and Jett yanks him onto his feet. They share a quick hug. Nice work. But don't peak too early. Camp goes for 8 weeks, Tomo says, sincerely. Thanks, bro, Jett says. Jett heads for the showers, knowing that he won't be able to escape every manoeuvre. It's 10:30, and Jett can't sleep, but this time his gut is settled, and his heart rests at a normal rate. The glow of his iPad lights up his face. His muscle memory got him through MMA training in the afternoon, because his mind wasn't there. It has been deep in the pages of the Raven On blog, since reading on his phone in the afternoon. Her logo is a black raven, with its wings at full span. This week's post is Raven on Drugs. At 12 years old, Jett is easily impressed by big words. She sure can write, he thinks to himself. Raven abhors the new war on drugs, which she calls the war on poor. She looks at non-punitive, a word he had to look up, methods of dealing with drug addiction, and non-judgmental drug education programs. Ultimately, her blog post implores the reader to act with compassion and keep in mind that the most seriously affected drug addicts are often the most traumatized, and that treating them as criminals is essentially criminalizing trauma and human suffering. She's impressive. His kind of people. And he's going to help her, whether she likes it or not. Chapter 6. This morning's bus ride is an anxious one, and when Jett finally sees her at the stop on York Street, his excitement peaks. She taps on. He studies her face. He was wrong about her. She isn't some stereotypical brooding teen, like so many other, not like other girls her age, but rather bright and friendly. She is funny, sunny, caring, and most definitely daring. It was those bullies that were the ones with the problem. They are the ones trying to block out the sun. "Hi, Olive," he says, face full of hope. Olive smirks. "Hi, Jett," she says back, smiling freely. Her lip ring catches the light as she grabs a pole and sits down next to Jett. He notices other kids on the bus stare at them, as a pretty 15-year-old girl sitting next to a 12-year-old boy to whom she is not related snaps the girders of social hierarchy. "I need to talk to you," he whispers. "I need to talk to you too," she says. His eyes widen. "Really?" "Yeah. You still want to help me?" "Yes, that's why I wanted to talk to you." "Good. I may have been hasty turning you down. Meet me at the library at recess, okay?" "Okay." "Wow," he thinks to himself. "That was easy." They get off the bus, and the same clump of bullies walk by. "Hey Lois, can't go anywhere without your bodyguard?" Ghislaine says. Olive turns to Jett. "You know you can legally punch them because you're only 12, right?" "Why don't you try fighting your own battles?" Ghislaine says with her hands on her hips. Without skipping a beat, Olive puts her knuckles through Ghislaine's nose. She follows it with a wild haymaker, connecting with Ghislaine's chin. Olive is shocked when Ghislaine topples over. Right on the button, she thinks to herself. Ghislaine's goons stand with their jaws hanging, and it takes a few seconds for them to rush over to their fallen ringleader. Olive walks away, having conquered the wilderness that skirts the zero-tolerance zone. But first period is barely 5 minutes old, when the students learn that the regime in charge sometimes chooses to exercise its jurisdiction over the lawless lands between the bus stop and school gate. "Olive Farrow, immediately report to Principal Katz's office," comes a triggered voice over the PA system. Jett swallows. When recess comes and there's no sign of Olive at the library, he pulls out his phone and gets onto Raven On. He reaches the contact page and sends through a message, his phone number, followed by the initials JP. In less than a minute, his phone chimes. "Hey Jett, exploded nose equals 3-week suspension and possible legal action. Constant bullying equals sweet nothing. Is the school run by a mob lawyer or something? Can you meet after school?" "Oh no, sorry to hear that. Can't meet. Rugby training," he replies. Damn. Wendell Preacher, Year 11. He's the one. Delete this message. Crap. Olive was right. What does Jett bring to the table? He's been given a lead. What to do with it? How to even find out who this Wendell Preacher is? He could ask his brother, as Bruce is also in Year 11. But how would he justify that? Then he takes a step back to his first question. What to do with it? So what if he did know who Wendell Preacher was? What would he do anyway? He cares, and if he can bond with people the way he thinks he can, then what? He checks the time on his phone. 10 minutes until the end of recess. He rushes out of the library and heads for the administration block. "Come in," a voice says from the counsellor's office. Thank goodness she's in, Jett thinks to himself. He opens the door, and Emily is just as happy to see him as he is to see her. "It's 8 minutes until third period. I need to know what you do and how you do it," Jett blurts out. "I was about to ask the same of you," Emily replies. She pushes off the lounge and rushes over to him. She throws out her arms, with tears in her eyes. Jett opens up his, and they embrace. It's instant. It's as if Jett's heart shoots out hands of electricity that grab onto the fibres of Emily's. They hold still, allowing golden light to envelop them. This is what it felt like. I remember it like it was yesterday, Emily thinks to herself. They release, but hold hands as they break. I don't know what's happening to me, but you seem to understand. Not exactly. I just know it's possible. How is it possible? The heart has its own brain and generates its own electromagnetic field. That field can be felt even at a distance. You know how you get a vibe about people? This is the vibe, the vibration, that you feel. I never knew the heart had a brain. So we have 2 brains. Actually, the gut has one as well. So we have 3. Now in your specific case, I'm no cardiologist, so I can only speculate, but your heart brain is so powerful, it can alter the frequency of another person's, bringing them into the same vibrational plane as you. But why can I do this? I mean, it's not normal. That I do not know. There is a template for building a human, but we are all born with our own mutations. This is yours. May I have another? Jett smiles and nods, and they hug again. Not very professional, I know, Emily says with a giggle. Well, what do you do professionally? Jett asks, looking at the clock on the wall, aware that he has about 7 minutes left. What do you tell people when you help them? Emily smiles. You really want to help people, don't you? Jett nods. I've had years of university training, hundreds of hours of supervised clinical practice, and almost 2 decades worth of professional sessions. And we have about 7 minutes left until the end of recess. I suppose you'll be getting the short version. Jett nods. So a student comes in and pours their heart out. What do you do? It's important to forge a bond, a healing relationship. That's the healthy soil, for no growth can come without it. Your power allows you to skip that step, so all you have to do is listen. Okay. Any tips? Jett asks. When someone is talking, give them your full attention. When they finish a sentence, let some silence settle and, in that moment, make sure you understand what has been said, and show that you understand. Seek clarification if you must. Nod, reflect their words. This goes for all conversations, not just counselling sessions. Your power allows you to bond instantly, but add in these conversational skills, and hearts will open like flowers to the sun. It sounds so simple to Jett, but then he's reminded of his mother and his Aunt Mabel, his father's sister. Watching them chat is like watching a hijacking get interrupted by a robbery, which is then cut short by a fire alarm, which in turn is short-circuited by an electrical anomaly. Either one will jump in whenever they feel like it, virtually without any concern for the other. Stories are often responded to with, "Oh my god, the same thing happened to me. I was in bar class when..." "Yeah, but you'll never believe what Judy did. You know what you should do? Why don't you just..." "That's nothing. You know what happened to me. You need to get over it." Or, "Well, there's no use crying about it." You know, they should really teach us this in school, Jett says. There's a lot they should be teaching you in school. Now, as you can imagine, I hear some rather unsavoury things from my clients. You will too. What sort of things? Everything. I have worked with murderers, pedophiles, rapists, narcissists, wife beaters, husband beaters, and child killers. You must prepare for this. For a heart-to-heart bond is all siphon, no filter. I have a supervisor with whom I debrief. You will need the same. Got anyone in mind? She smiles, then looks at the clock. The bell for third period will ring any second, so she gets a move on. No matter what is said to you, let it come. They are just words. You must hear between the lines to what is really being said. Look for the emotional content of what they are saying. Help them find it, because they don't know either. Do this by reflecting. I once had a student who had crippling anxiety every time there was a severe weather warning. It turns out that once there was a hurricane with the same name as her mother. Her father once made a joke about how her mother can transform when she's angry. Unfortunately for the student, she never quite processed it, even though she knew it was a joke. But after working through it with her, she recalled her early childhood, and that her mother struggled with postnatal depression and used to yell in her face. She could feel her mother's breath, like a hurricane. See? We sifted through the ashes and found what caused the fire. With some group counselling, she was able to share that with her parents. Now, I am proud to say, she is studying meteorology. So, reflect. The more you reflect, the more of themselves they'll see. She smiles proudly as he takes it all in. Look at you. You don't even need words to reflect. You have a superpower, Jett. Good luck. Jett heads for third period, English. He meets up with Rain and they walk side by side. Coming from the opposite direction is a trio of seniors. A tall, lanky blonde boy in the middle of the group, who has always given them at least a sneer, picks up his stride and launches a shoulder into Rain, dropping him to the floor. Jett turns and cracks his knuckles into fists. As he does so, a teacher rounds the corner. Jett and the much bigger boy hold each other's gaze. Nostrils are flared, chests are puffed, and eyeballs are set to burst. The teacher, Mr. Schwartz, a short pot-bellied man who wears a tie for no reason, puts his pudgy hands on his hips. "Wendell, don't you have somewhere to be?" Mr. Schwartz says, in his underdeveloped voice. "Yeah, at least I know where I belong," Wendell says. He gives Jett a death stare, and his friends laugh as they walk away. Oh crap, Jett thinks to himself. That's Wendell. Jett's heart is racing. He is ready to go, and it scares him how badly he wanted to hit Wendell. Not just hit him, but mess him up. Badly. Rain is the most innocent person he knows, and isn't a combatant in the testosterone wars. He offers Rain a hand, and hoists him up. "They're lucky a teacher showed up," Rain says. "You know what he needs, don't you?" "Yeah, I do," Jett says. Chapter 7. Superpower? Jett never thought of it like that. But he's never shied away from a challenge before, and after getting home from school, he immediately gets to work. Every superhero has some sort of disguise. It makes sense on so many levels. Protecting loved ones, living a parallel life that's at least close to normal, and not being liable for citywide damage from rampages through central business districts. Being the son of a cop, Jett is well aware that police will call off a chase if there is a risk to the public. Superheroes have a different code. They don't stop until they've razed a metropolis to the ground and destroyed the insurance industry. Jett ponders on the custom of costume and decides that it is indeed wise. He has confirmation of his remarkable ability, and if word got out about the power in his heart, he may never have a moment's peace again in his life. Besides, if an embrace goes wrong and a target is immune to his power for some reason, Jett won't be able to live it down. He'd always be the hugger, perhaps sexual harasser, or even a bully. Jett scours the internet, searching for images of superheroes. Impractical would sum up most outfits. Capes are aplenty. A garish, inconvenient potential hazard. Spandex and a mask seem to be convention. Rugby jerseys have followed the same trend and are way tighter than they used to be. It makes sense, of course, giving the opposition less to grab, and as a superhero, the last thing one would want is to get snagged on a fence. But how to make one? The most unrealistic thing about getting bitten by a radioactive spider was not that all of a sudden a teenage boy could sling webs, but that he developed the amazing ability to tailor skin-tight, seamless outfits made of indestructible material. Perhaps a spider was once bitten by a tailor. He slides the mirrored door of his built-in wardrobe and pulls open his sports drawer. I guess this will have to do, he thinks to himself. Next he goes to the garage and takes a can of black spray paint to his full-face helmet. He checks himself in the mirror. Enemies won't stand a chance when they get a load of this, because they will most likely die of laughter. But at least his undies are on the correct side of his tights. Now for the important part, the part from which costume design was conveniently distracting him. How to actually get to Wendell Preacher. How to get to any target for that matter. Through his reasoning, he determines 2 parameters should be met. 1. Wendell must be alone, for a grappling match works only one-on-one. 2. There must be a way to make an emergency exit, should the mission go awry. The amount of reconnaissance required to satisfy those 2 conditions would rule out rugby training, MMA training, homework, and life in general. Jett reflects on advice from his rugby coach. Play what's in front of you. If the opponent isn't offering any openings, and when an adversary is well matched, it is up to the attacker to change the shape of the defence. Running a line here and drawing some players there and getting the ball to where the gaps appeared was his basic strategy. He pictures Wendell and his posse roaming the halls together. He must disperse the pack and draw Wendell to another location. Ideally, it would be off school grounds, as doing it at Flexington South High will give away that the mysterious helmeted hugger is a student. But that probably isn't possible. English is first period, quelling the anxious wait. Jett waits outside the classroom with Rain, who rambles on about the poor recycling practices of his apartment complex. How can you not know that no plastic bags means do not put plastic bags in the recycling bin? Do they think it means a person bearing the sign has run out of plastic bags and would like their idiotic neighbours to donate some by depositing them in this recycling bin? Come on! Jett listens with one ear and nods, while his eyes are fixed on the lockers at the end of the corridor. Sure enough, Wendell and his 2 attack dogs round the corner and open their lockers. He watches as Wendell punches in the code for his locker, and almost laughs to himself. 1111, what luck. Jett excuses himself in the middle of English, earning himself a toilet pass with some top-notch grimacing. Once in the hallway, his heart races. He rushes over to Wendell's locker and punches in the code. The lead turns green. He opens the door and looks at the back side of it. He swallows. Stuck on the inside is a swastika. Below that is a Nation Front sticker. And next to that is a picture of a group of people in white hooded robes holding assault rifles. He hits the reset switch. The lead pulses green, and Jett punches in a new code. He then hits the reset switch again, and a long beep is heard. He closes the locker and hits the lock button. The lead turns red, and Jett returns to class from his bathroom break, having relieved himself. The bell rings and folders are shoved into bags. Jett moves as calmly as he can, but there is a slight shake in his arms. Students spill into the corridor and, sure enough, there's Wendell, perplexed as to why his locker won't open. He bangs it with the heel of his hand repeatedly, drawing the attention of everyone around. "Piece of junk! Made in China rubbish!" he shouts. Mr. Schwartz comes over. "You think that's going to help, Wendell? Why don't you use your head for once?" Wendell cocks his head back, ready to launch it into the locker door. "Not like that. Go to the student support office and get them to reset it." Wendell stops and walks away, with his 2 acolytes in tow. "Where do you think you 2 are going? Your lockers are fine. Get to second period." "I'll catch you in class," Wendell says, with a quick flick of the chin. The hallway clears, and Jett does a little fist pump. He has broken the formation of the opposition, and he knows his opponent's next move. Jett goes to the toilets and takes off his school uniform. Underneath is a superhero outfit he put together the night before. He knows that Wendell will come back to his locker, and his heart pounds as he waits. Then it hits him. What he is about to do is assault. What if his target were a female? There's a term for forcing oneself onto an unwilling party, and it isn't superhero. It's not much of a superpower if he has to risk ending up as a registered sex offender to exercise it. Bonding with Hector was incidental, and in the case of Emily Earthman, consensual. This would be assault at a minimum. Secondly, he's already tampered with Wendell's locker, which is vandalism. All because he's been named as a suspect by Olive. Superheroes are always so happy to destroy and break the law, so long as it suits their agenda. It was a bad example they set, and not one that he is willing to follow. This is a terrible idea. There are no superheroes. Just super abusers with superpower. He does not want to be a masked vigilante. He can't abandon the plan completely, though. Other than the planned assault and minor vandalism, he is doing the right thing. He thinks of Emily. She lets them come to her. Then she receives them. Then he remembers her tip. That he can listen with his eyes. He slips on his helmet. Then slips through the boys' toilet door. He stands next to Wendell's locker, and his timing is near perfect, for it is less than 10 seconds before he hears annoyed footsteps slapping the corridor floor. Wendell turns into the hallway and stares. There, standing by his locker, with his or her arms folded, is some kid in a pair of black compression tights, a white long-sleeve rash guard, Jett's black one was in the wash, and a matte, black, downhill helmet. Who the hell are you? Wendell spits. I'm a friend. You can trust me, Jett says, sincerely, for his heart must be all in. He flips up the visor and holds Wendell's eyes with his. The air between them stirs, like the first moments of an electrical storm. Wendell's face softens, as if he too can feel the sparks, and although they don't get as violent as the tempests of heart-to-heart contact, they seem to have swept him into a different realm of consciousness. I just want to know, did you have anything to do with the fake shooting the other day? Jett asks. Wendell shakes his head quickly, as if to throw off his newfound state. What? Why are you asking me? Well, I got a tip-off. Are you a cop? No, I'm not a cop. What the hell are you anyway? Just a friend. Friends don't wear masks. Don't they? Wendell squints, knowing where this strange guy is going with this. He puffs out his chest and gets in Jett's face. Did you open my locker? Yes, Jett says, with calm conviction, knowing that honesty is the only path to connection. Wendell makes fists and clenches his teeth. Jett doesn't flinch and keeps his eyes soft and breathing calm. He is in the wrong and accepts that Wendell is right to be angry. Also, he is wearing a helmet and just needs to cover the body, which to him comes easier than a piece of store-bought cake. Wendell raises his knuckles, but then releases them and goes for a shove. Jett parries easily and scoops Wendell's arm in a maneuver called an arm drag, discharging his energy and pivoting to get out of the way. Why did you open my locker? To see what you were hiding. It's none of your business what's in there. You're right. I shouldn't have done that. But when I lock eyes onto something like that, I can't look away. Let it come, were Emily's words. Jett reflects on those as he relaxes his body after the minor combat. His body language tells his opponent that he is no threat. Again, the field between them electrifies. Jett takes his chance. He extends his right hand and touches Wendell on the arm. Skin on skin seems to add more charge to the air, taking Wendell's defences down a little more. Wendell looks down at Jett's hand in confusion. Then Jett goes for it. At a normal pace, as to not startle Wendell, Jett goes for a hug. Chest to chest, the bonding is almost instant, as if sinews are braiding together. Wendell's body shudders. What is happening? Wendell asks. I'm still trying to figure that out. Wendell, when you need to talk, let me know.
How?
Oh, that's a bloody good question, Jett thinks to himself. Leave a sign on your locker, then I'll be in touch. A door is heard opening. Jett runs off down the corridor. He goes back to the toilet block and gets changed. Recess comes, and Jett isn't present as his friends talk. Conversation drifts from rugby to video games to girls. Jett's mind, which is often on all three, is filled by a white supremacist. He shoots a message to Olive, asking her why she suspected Wendell. He doesn't mention anything about his findings, as to not contaminate any evidence. His phone chimes. Sorry, catching up on maths, she replies. He bumped into me, called me a leso, and said he can't wait for a cull. What have you found? Still looking into it. Okay. BTW, I'm not a leso. Jett thinks. Doing further research, it turns out racial supremacy and hating on lesos, and women in general, go hand in hand. Soon, he learns that racial supremacy is the mirror image of racial hatred. He's 12 years old, almost 13. This isn't how he usually spends time on the internet. With a Vietnamese father and European mother, Jett has had a smooth run through life. Researching this topic draws him into a dark, suffocating, and disconnecting place. Forums are consumed by hatred. Jokes, skewed statistics, ideas of what they'd like to do to feminists, if they ever got the chance, pollute the message boards. There is no balance, and an explorer to such a realm would think there are only dark skies to match, without considering there are shores and harbours, and calms after tempests. It distorts reality and fills the head and body with bile. But though it is vile, Jett can see through the memes and slurs. Even the most fearsome of keyboard warriors wants one thing: connection. That's why they're there after all. He senses the desperation, the deprivation, and pictures a bitter loner, going to extremes to impress his or her anonymous internet buddies, just to feel a bit of belonging. Poor Wendell. This must be how he feels every day. Over the rest of the week, he passes Wendell's locker several times a day. There is no discernible mark. He and Rain also pass by Wendell and his friends. Jett is careful not to overtly observe Wendell, as his eyes might tell too much, so with his head low, he slips sideways glances. There are no shoulder drops or intimidating stares. Wendell just passes by like any other student. The next few weeks pass without incident. He thinks about Olive and Hector, without having time to see either of them. Jett's rugby team continues their winning streak, albeit with one washout, and Coach Blaze is happy with Jett's progress in training for the Prince of the Cage tournament. Jett is also happy, as he now trains with insulating foil taped to his left pectoral muscle. Wendell, though, is on the opposite trajectory. Jett notices there is less puff in Wendell's chest, and a droop in his face. It's as if he lacks the energy to power them. Jett doesn't enjoy seeing him this way. It's like when a player from the other team gets injured, or someone's soul is stolen in the ring and they lose their chin forever, a fate that has befallen so many of his MMA heroes. And it's clear that Wendell doesn't like it either. For after second period, Thursday morning, Wendell returns to his locker. He slips a permanent marker out of his pants pocket and scribbles a rough circle on the bottom right corner of his grey locker door. Jett can't believe what he's seeing, but supposes it was inevitable, thus has his response ready. There is a bond between them, and the mystery and supernatural nature of their meeting must be gnawing away at Wendell. So, when the hallway clears, Jett slips a letter through the gap at the bottom of the locker door. It's pouring. Rugby training is off, which has increased the wait for Jett. He has been sitting under the elevated causeway at Bruins Bay for over an hour. He walked the final leg, with his bike hidden in bushes nearby. He looks at his phone. If all goes to plan, Wendell should be here I'm here. Jett jumps, startled. He didn't, or couldn't, hear Wendell approaching from the other side. That's a drawback of wearing a helmet full time. Something he will have to address. He turns and finds Wendell holding an umbrella. There's something humanising about an umbrella. Even the hardest of hard asses look a little softer when they're scared of water. They come eye to eye. Then Jett extends his right hand. Wendell takes to it like a dry mouth to water, and Jett makes the most of that, pulling him in for a hug. Wendell doesn't hold back. He puts down his open umbrella and melts into Jett. He can feel Wendell's heavy breath. Wendell pulls away and looks at Jett, face breaking. "I'm not a fag," he says. "Are you a fag?" "No," Jett says. "And this doesn't make us fags?" "No." "Good. So what's happening?" "What happened?" "I don't know. I don't know how it all works. All I know is that we've bonded, and that you marked your locker." Wendell sucks in a deep one, and throws his hands on his hips. He looks at his shoes. "My uncle got out of jail," he says. Jett says nothing, waiting for him to continue. "He's a skinhead, but he grew a mullet when he was inside." "A skinhead with a mullet?" Jett asks. They share a quick laugh. "Came over last night. Wants me to help him with something." "Here it comes," Jett thinks to himself. "Gave me these." He reaches into his trouser pockets with each hand and pulls out a pair of shiny brass-studded knuckle dusters. Wendell gathers his thoughts and shakes his head. It's about to go down. "Does this have anything to do with the fake shooting the other week?" Jett asks. He does his best to hide the excitement surging through him. "What? No. Why asking me that again?" "It was a pretty big deal, that's all." Wendell shrugs. Probably just a prank." Having bonded, Jett is relieved that Wendell is not the one they're looking for. However, part of him is disappointed that he has not found the culprit. "There's a rally tomorrow. And where there's a rally, there's a counter-rally. That's why he gave me these," Wendell says, holding up the knuckle dusters, locked and loaded on his fists. Jett looks at the brass. Alarm and judgment bubble in his throat, forcing him to swallow them down. "So what's the rally about?" The rain spears down, rattling the shelter, forcing them to raise their voices. "What do you reckon?" Wendell scoffs. "The country's falling apart. Fags and Muslims are taking over the world, flooding the West. They don't speak English and they don't follow our laws." Jett nods. "Okay." "What do you mean, okay?" "I hear you and understand what you're saying." "What? You're not going to tell me I'm wrong and I'm a racist homophobe?" "No." Wendell looks at him, shocked. "You don't think I am?" "It sounds like you've got some doubts whether you are or not." "But do you think I'm racist?" "I can hear you're really passionate about English and the law, and men and women being attracted to each other." "Yeah, exactly." "So, this rally then is about teaching people laws and encouraging them to speak English, while also helping men and women date each other?" Wendell loosens his fists into innocuous hands and allows the brass knuckles to slide off into his jacket pocket. He shakes his head. "Nation Front has cage fighters and bodybuilders itching to go. The ferals on the other side are pussies if you ask me. But they sure know how to mix a Molotov cocktail. But we can make them too. Main Street's going to be lit." Wendell takes a breath. "I'm ready to go too. But meeting you, it's messed with my head. If it makes you feel any better, it's messed with mine too." Jett assures him. So, what did you do to me? Did you hypnotise me? No, that's not what I do. What do you do? I don't really know. It's all new to me too. But we have a connection now. What does that even mean? It means I can't stop caring about you. Wendell looks at Jett in alarm. Not in a gay way. Wendell stares out into the rain. My uncle says you got to look out for yourself. Drills it into me. He's my mum's brother. Like a dad to me. I ain't got no dad. Says he wants to make sure she's raising me right. Sounds like he cares about you. And the country. Says he won't be happy till every queer and Muslim's out of the country. It sounds like he's focused on happiness. Wendell snorts. You're funny, kid. What do you mean? I ain't ever seen Jimmy smile or laugh without someone getting hurt. He ain't happy. Don't think he ever will be. 'Cause even if every Muslim and queer disappeared tomorrow, he's still left with women, and boy does he hate women. Unless they're in the kitchen or the bedroom. His last ex put a restraining order on him. It sounds like she loves the law too. Wendell laughs. You are funny. Well, I hope he finds happiness. And I hope you do too. The rain eases, and a streak of sunlight pierces the dark clouds. I'd better go while I can, Wendell says. Thanks for meeting me. Good luck with the English and Law rally tomorrow. You did well, Emily says. I did nothing, Jett says, soaked after riding back to school. You listened to him, which is next to nothing. Remember what I taught you. Just listen, I know. But it's not much of a power if I can't change anything. Imagine having the strength to lift a heavy object, but you can only put it back down exactly where you picked it up. What's the point? But Jett, you have the ability to empower a heavy object to lift itself. Is that not a special power? The only place Wendell is moving himself is to Main Street, where he'll be armed with knuckle dusters. I think you underestimate the power of a bond. I think you underestimate the power of brass knuckles. She looks at the clock. They should both be at home by now, but Jett caught her just before she left the office. You're a smart kid, Jett. You know how teenagers talk to each other? Your interaction with Wendell was not that. Marking his locker in the first place and then actually showing up to meet you were two massive strides for him. It takes a whole heart's worth of courage to show that sort of vulnerability. Jett sighs. She's right, he concedes. Before developing his newfound abilities, he would have been way more comfortable fighting Wendell, even armed with knuckle dusters, than doing this feelings crap. Perhaps he shouldn't underestimate the power of a bond. Wendell himself conceded that theirs had messed with his head, but he isn't the only one with whom Wendell has a bond, nor is he the only one in Wendell's head. Jett's phone chimes. It's Olive. How do you know? She asks. I asked him, he replies. Really? Yes. Just like that. Just like that. As if he'd tell you the truth. He's being honest. I know it. How? I just know. All right. I'll see you on the bus tomorrow. Suspension's over. Chapter 8. It's a cloudless winter's day. Bonding with Wendell and knowing his fists were wilting was one thing, but getting to see Olive again was another. And if they win the game this afternoon against Charles College, it will be a day to remember. The bus heads out of the suburbs towards the city. There are a few placards about. Nationfront has a presence already. Skinheads mull around the steps of Main Street Station. The bus moves on, and they reach the York Street stop, where two students wait, neither of whom is Olive. More and more protesters and counter-protesters chant, as they file towards the city. The kids on the bus press their noses against the windows for a better look. "Whoa! Check that one out!" little Matt Lee says, pointing at a skinhead with a German eagle and swastika tattooed on the side of his head. The man turns and faces the bus. Although his eyes are hidden by his black wraparound sunglasses, it is clear there are hard eyes shooting a cold stare at them. Matt jumps away from the window and rushes to the other side of the bus. The man grins and motions a throat slit. Jett's gut betrays him. For the first time since the events of the Gap, it feels like his stomach is a bottomless pit of quicksand tumbling into an abyss. He whips out his phone and fires off a text. He taps his feet as he waits for a reply. Nothing comes. So he goes to the Raven On blog. Right there on the landing page is a headline that takes his stomach to new depths. Neo-Nazi rally must be stopped. His eyes scan the page as he scrolls up his phone. Not only is she going to counter-protest, she is planning on documenting and doxing everyone there with their photos on her blog. This is not going to end well, he figures. End of the line, bro. Jett looks up and realises that the bus has pulled up at Flexington South High School. His brother motions for him to hurry up. He throws his backpack over his shoulder and gets off the bus. But his feet are stuck to the spot. "What are you waiting for?" Bruce says. "I don't feel well," Jett says. Bruce shrugs. Pre-game nerves. Just sleep it off in the sick bay and put on some headphones. Take your mind off the game for a bit." "I think I need to go home." "You kidding me?" "No. They need you out there." "I know. Mum's not going to be happy if she has to pick you up. I'll get home on my own." "You want me to tell your coach?" "No." You don't reckon he'll notice his 5/8 missing?" "Kickoff's 2:30. I might make it back. You know, I might feel better by the afternoon." "You can't just leave the team hanging like that." "Then I'll play. I'll make it back. Promise," Jett says, rubbing his abdomen. Bruce edges close, within whisper range. "Do you need to take a dump? I know a good toilet behind the science labs. Always clean." "No." "All right. See you at the game then." They fist bump before Jett scurries away. Bruce shakes his head. Diarrhea for sure, he thinks to himself. Jett runs. Not the pseudo-run that most commuters do when they're cutting it fine for public transport, attempting to maintain some dignity by keeping their arms by their side. He sprints at full charge, as if he's running down the opposition to pull off a try-saving tackle. His arms swing freely and functionally. About 500 metres from the school bus bay is a public bus stop. The 139 goes straight to the city. Crap, he realises. He needs his helmet. That's half an hour on public transport. Then another half back to the city. The bus ride feels like an age, and he can't distinguish between anxiety and travel sickness. Finally, he's at his stop. He storms through the back door and thunders up the stairs, grabs his helmet and black tights, and shoves them into his bag. Then he rushes back downstairs. "Jett," his mum says. She walks into the kitchen. Her makeup is done and she seems nervous. "What are you doing home?" "I forgot something." "Do you have it?" "Yes." "Then get back to school." "Okay. Bye, Mum." "Bye, Jett." He runs out through the front door this time, surprised that his mum didn't have any further questions for him. As he rushes down the street, he's almost hit by a car pulling into his cul-de-sac. The driver winds down his window. "Watch it, kid!" Jett puts up his hands to apologise and takes off. He takes a quick backward glance and notices the car go into his driveway. That's strange, he thinks to himself. He gets onto Fulham Road and sees the 136 indicate and pull away from the bus stop. Jett finds another gear and runs as fast as he can, waving his arms in the air, hoping to flag down the bus. The brake lights glow red and Jett breathes a little easier. He jumps on board. "Thank you," he says breathlessly to the bus driver. He taps his student card onto the RFID reader. He is about to move down the aisle when the driver latches onto his arm. "See how it says not to stand there? Well, stand there and don't move," she says. Jett furrows his brow in confusion. Then he turns and looks down the aisle. One side is full of skinheads, all staring at him. The other side is a ragtag bunch of misfits, multicoloured hair, dreadlocks, facial piercings, gothic makeup, and a strong whiff of essential oils. It doesn't take an empath to feel the tension on board. Jett can't believe it hasn't blown up already. He faces the windscreen and doesn't look back. "Thank you," he says to the bus driver as she pulls away. "You're welcome. You're not going to the city, are you?" she asks, barely above a whisper. "I am. Stay away from Main Street." "I can't believe the bus is so quiet," Jett says. The driver smirks. "I renamed my pocket Wi-Fi." Jett holds onto the metal bar next to the driver's booth with one hand and pulls out his phone with the other and checks out the available networks. He smiles, as one of them is named Federal_Field Agent, #4721. Jett keeps his attention on his phone. Raven is updating a live Twitter feed, and Jett scrolls through the events of the past hour. She's prolific. There's a stream of updates already. According to her, Main Street is packed. Each side is kept in place by a line of uniformed officers, one man deep. They were expecting barricades and riot police, but the ones carrying the shields are used as security for the businesses that line the street. The bus pulls into the CBD, and the driver nods at Jett to take off, while she keeps her eyes on the rearview mirror. He taps his travel card and gets off the bus. He turns back and watches as the protesters and counter-protesters, although he doesn't know which side would be considered what, get off the bus. Not a word is said between the two groups, and hardly a look is exchanged. They break off into separate groups and go in opposite directions. Jett runs into an alleyway. He drops onto one knee and takes off his backpack and unzips it. He slips off his school polo net shirt and swaps it for his black rashie. He shoves his helmet onto his head and clips it in place. Then he takes off his shoes, looks around to check that he is alone, and when he is satisfied that he is, whips off his pants. He squeezes into his black compression tights, then jumps into his white sneakers. Finally, he hides his backpack behind a skip bin. The worst thing about the helmet is the muffling of sound. Chants are building and reverberating through the streets, but their intensity is dampened. Jett wanders onto Main Street, right in the middle of the two sides. Now he feels it. They're about 50 metres apart from each other, and the looks are menacing. A line of black-clad riot cops stands in front of him, keeping the protesters away from the shop fronts and deterring anyone else from joining in on the action from the sides, thus forcing the numbers to swell from the back. As described by Raven, the demilitarised zone is maintained by a line of cops, each one policing each side. Each mass is pressed up against their respective cordon, shouting taunts. Without his helmet, it would be deafening. It's like being caught in the midst of a real-life message board. The vile posts are made corporeal by the warriors who have swapped their keyboards for placards. The shouting thickens the air. Insults pile on threats, which stack on chants that ride on a wave of shaken fists. Veins pop on necks, and eyes are as sharp as knives. This is ugly, Jett thinks to himself. This is what he, Emily, and Olive can feel. The undercurrent of tension that flows through the city like Roland's River. At the front line of the neo-Nazis is a mountain of a skinhead who towers over the cops. He's having the time of his life. He smirks and beckons the anti-fascists to come closer, who blow kisses in return. Jett scans the first row of anti-fascists, and after looking up and down 5 times, he spots Olive. She is down on one knee, snapping photos with her phone. He's relieved that she's safe. Then she is knocked over by one of the counter-protesters and breaks her fall with her hand. But she looks inspired, as if a great idea has possessed her. As she regains her balance, she squeezes between 2 cops and scurries into open space. She starts filming, but her incursion into the void spurs on the huge skinhead. His smirk disappears and his face reddens. He points at Olive, stabbing his right index finger as if to accuse her of some injustice. She doesn't move, and the police don't break the line to remove her, which enrages him even more. The skinhead parts the cops like a diva through a wardrobe, and steams towards Olive. She keeps her phone camera pointed at him, and holds her ground. He snarls and rips his white t-shirt over his head, and slams it into the bitumen. Olive holds her position, keeping her eyes on the journalistic prize. The gap between them is down to 20 metres, then 10. Jett takes a breath and latches onto the shoulders of 2 riot police who are facing the other way and launches himself over the top of them with one explosive muscle up. He sprints towards the skinhead without checking to see if any of the cops have broken the line to pursue him. He's just one kid, just like Olive is one protester. So he doubts the cops will break their line just for him. "Hey!" Jett shouts as loudly as he can, lest his voice be eaten by his helmet. Both the skinhead and Olive turn. Jett slows his run to a composed walk. "Can we talk?" Jett asks. Jett extends a hand as he treads towards the giant skinhead. But there is no reciprocal hand. Rather, the man lifts his right leg and cocks it for a push kick. Jett jumps to his right and parries the kick with his left outer forearm. Jett needs to bridge the distance, but this guy is huge. Then again, he realises, he doesn't. "Run!" he shouts at Olive. That's why he's here after all. Not to fight, but to protect Olive. However, she refuses to back off and continues filming. The neo-Nazi tries to grab Jett's brashie, but Jett leans back and evades his grasp. Jett squares his stance and puts his hands up, with open palms facing out so that he is ready to defend himself without appearing a threat. Still, the man makes fists with his massive tattooed hands. His right hand is cocked near his chin, and his left is out way too far, telling Jett that this guy likes to throw heavy, which doesn't bother Jett, as he'll see the punches coming like a truck doing a 3-point turn. "I don't want to fight you," Jett pleads. "Then why are you running at me?" the skinhead says. "To protect her." "Then tell her to get back on her side." Then the skinhead whips his head to his right, back towards his fellow members. Something has caught his attention. Jett follows the man's eyes and turns his head too. Sprinting towards them, as if being chased by lions, is Wendell. "Don't hurt him," Wendell says. "Don't hurt him, Uncle Jimmy. Let's go back behind the line," he says, tugging the Hulk's right arm. "Oh, that's your uncle," Jett thinks to himself. He must have cut off the mullet, lest he not fit in. Jimmy glares at Wendell. "Whose side are you on?" "Please come back." "Whose side are you on?" Jimmy booms again. "You have to come back. You're on parole." "Where the hell do you stand, boy?" "I stand with my people." "Then quit bothering me and go stand with them." Wendell swallows. Then he turns and takes a step towards the neo-Nazis, before circling back around and planting himself beside Jett, who is as shocked as Jimmy. "What the hell are you doing?" Standing with my people." "Who the hell is this anyway?" He's my friend." "What about me? What about us? What about all I've done for you and your mother?" "I'm sorry, Uncle Jimmy." Jimmy gets right in Wendell's face and stands over the top of him. "Don't uncle me. Do you know what we do to race traitors? Do you know what we do to anyone who leaves?" "I'm sorry, Uncle Jim." Wendell's lips tremble. Then a wet patch grows on his crotch, like blood, seeping from a wound. He knows. Nobody leaves. They either make themselves disappear, or someone else does. Jett watches on, then remembers that Olive is also watching on. He turns his head to her and sees that she has crept closer and is possibly live streaming. He jumps in front of the camera. "You have to stop filming this," Jett says to Olive, as kindly as possible. She turns the camera onto Jett's concealed face, before cutting away to her left. She films Jimmy storming away, back towards the other protesters. Wendell stands in his own piss, crying and holding his cheek. Jett takes the few steps required to reach Wendell. He puts a hand on Wendell's shoulder, and Wendell turns and goes for a hug. Jett takes him in, and Wendell wails on Jett's shoulder, as Olive films them. She then turns her camera onto the Nazis, and films Jimmy disappear through the crowd in a huff, leaving them in confusion. The anti-fascist protesters are also subdued, with the front line silently watching Jett and Wendell. "I have to go," Jett says to Wendell. Wendell nods. "Thank you. Keep an eye on my locker, friend." Jett nods. "I will." "Wait. Who are you?" Jett shrugs. "Nobody." He glances at Olive, who has put the camera back on him. She looks at him with curiosity. "You're welcome," he thinks to himself. He then takes off, back to the alleyway, and retrieves his bag. He slips off his helmet and runs his fingers through his flattened hair, roughing up the sweaty mess. He changes back into his school uniform behind the dumpster, and then runs for the bus. Jett bursts into the change rooms, where his team is kitted up and about to go out to warm up. "Phan, where have you been?" his coach barks. "Sorry, coach. I wasn't feeling great this morning." "I'm better now," Jett replies. "You missed chemistry," Parky, his partner in the halves, says. "Who cares about chemistry?" Coach says. "Kickoff's in 10 minutes. Jett and Parky smile. "Yes, coach," they say. "Anything interesting in chemistry, Parky?" Jett asks as he gets his boots on. Next week's quiz is on carbon." "Oh yeah? What can you tell me about it?" It comes from the Latin carbo, meaning coal. It's the 6th element on the periodic table, between boron and nitrogen, and it's the 4th most abundant element in the universe, after hydrogen, helium, and oxygen. I guess you're passing the quiz." "Oh, I almost forgot. It bonds easily with other elements." Jett raises his eyebrows. "Interesting." "Boys, you're here to play footy, not to learn stuff," Coach says. "Sorry, Coach," Jett says with a smirk. Coach Tuft is great. He always knew how to take the edge off the players' nerves. With the weight of the protest and the counter-protest off his shoulders, Jett is in flow. Some call it the zone, but Coach Tuft prefers flow, because it shows that the zone is not some static place, but a dynamic dance of mind and body, where thoughts do not tread on toes. There's no overthinking in this game. He reads the opposition like a street sign, and plays exactly what's in front of him. After a 42-0 victory and man of the match honours, Jett stands on the sideline, sinking down some electrolytes, as his brother takes the field. The first 15 has gone win-lose all season, and now Charles College could hand them back-to-back losses for the first time this year. As such, the team needs all the support they can get, so Principal Katz has let the whole school out early. Jett, still on a high from the wins of the day, cheers the loudest. His claps are aimed at his brother. Bruce got stocky genes. He also inherited mobility, and is the most dynamic loosehead prop the school has seen. But his form has been down lately, and Jett wonders if this is the reason he has been seeing Emily Earthman. Then his phone buzzes his leg. There's a new post from Raven. He smiles to himself, anticipating the write-up she must have given the kind, masked stranger that saved her from a giant skinhead. He clicks on the alert, which opens his browser. His jaw drops. In black bold letters, the landing page reads, "Nazi sympathizer in publicity stunt." What in the actual hell? Jett thinks to himself. He reads on. "Judging by today's so-called protest for national sovereignty, Joseph Goebbels is alive and well. What started as your standard fare angry skinheads yelling racist and homophobic chants turned into a piece of propaganda never before seen. A black-clad coward wearing a helmet acted the hero, setting up a redemption story for a young neo-Nazi thug. At the time of my live streaming from the front line, I was confused. But after reading the comments on the YouTube stream, I realised I should have looked around for plants in the crowd, who I'm sure were filming this heart-touching moment. This stunt has allowed them to flip the script on Punch a Nazi Day. Do not fall for it. The far right is creeping further into mainstream life, and now they are trying to humanise their members. Mark my words, this was a stunt to set up a contrast between the skinheads and the more palatable racists. They will present the redeemed supremacist as an everyman who has legitimate concerns. Look at this perfectly reasonable person, they'll say. He's turned his back on hatred, but look, he does have some valid points. Do not fall for it. Jett swallows. It hits him hard. Then bang, the game ball smacks him square in the face, sending him staggering. The crowd around him oohs. He puts his hand up to his nose. Blood. He rushes to the change rooms and leans over the first sink and lets the blood run freely. His eyes are watering, and soon that turns into a full cry. Jett, are you okay? Did it hurt that bad? Parky says, having come in to check on his pivot. It's too late for Jett to hold back, and he just lets it out. Parky puts a hand on Jett's back. There's first aiders on the sideline. Do you want me to call one of them? Jett shakes his head. Then he grabs some paper towels. After grabbing his backpack from under the pile of under-14's bags, he scurries to the administration block and steams towards Emily's door and smashes his knuckles against it repeatedly. He breathes heavily as he waits for a response. He raps his knuckles against it again. She isn't there. You just missed her, a voice says from behind. Jett turns. It's an austere office lady, clearly annoyed by his knocking. Sorry, he says meekly, before slinking past her. He runs to the staff car park and sees her getting into her car. He rips open the passenger door, jumps in, and slides low, as to not be visible from the outside. Emily swallows but keeps her cool. Another student approaches. Emily throws a jacket over Jett. Miss Earthman, I really need to see you. I'm so sorry, Mads. I really have to go. That's what everyone says. I'll see you first thing Monday. Promise. They drive. Jett stays low. They get to a basement car park, where Emily drives to the half-empty bottom level and parks deep in the corner. Jett sits up in the passenger seat. Did you see what Olive said about me? Did you see what everyone else was saying about me? Yes. I follow her. Jett starts crying. I was trying to help. I was trying to do the right thing. And that's exactly what you did. Then why is the world hating on me? The world doesn't hate you. You saw the tweets. Have you met the internet? It hates everybody. Anyone who does anything will get called out for it. Because the internet. Don't let them get to you. Jett wipes away a tear with his forearm. How can I be a bad person for listening? And who gets to decide who I should listen to? When my dad started dating my mum, my Vietnamese grandparents didn't approve, but nobody calls them racist. I don't even know where to begin. You're only 12 years old. You needn't be caught up in politics. So that's what all this is, politics. Emily sighs. I don't even know. Raven wrote a whole post about drug addicts and how they're trauma victims and that they deserve compassion and treatment, not judgment and jail. Well, you've got to be pretty messed up to dedicate your whole life to being racist, don't you think? So who are we to say who deserves compassion and understanding? Nobody. We're all nobody. Then either we all get it or none of us should. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jett. And I wish the rest of the world would too. What hope is there? In my early practice, I worked with a family. The mother and father worked together, and their opposing points of view complemented rather than competed, creating a well-balanced household. But then the parents got divorced in the ugliest possible way. So now there were two camps who couldn't be any more different. Each parent had their own agenda, and it didn't involve what was best for the kids. They just wanted to win, where winning meant getting the kids to take their side. There were no rules, no inches given, and no trust. No one was talking because no one was listening. It was just yelling. Talking to the wrong aunt put the children offside with the father. Wearing a gift from the father angered the mother. They made friends with the enemies of the other, regardless of the cost to themselves. Their existence was purely to spite the other. Owning the other was more important than paying bills. The kids copped it. They were manipulated, gaslit, and didn't know what was left, right, forwards, or backwards. Eventually, they realised they couldn't trust their parents to tell the truth about anything. So how did you help the family? The parents weren't interested in healing, so I focused on the kids. I essentially had to parent-proof them. They had to relearn what reality was. From the ground up. Literally. Ground truth. So I experimented with a new program called Nature Connectedness. Their therapy was life itself. Planting seeds and watching them grow. Observing tides. Tracing the phases of the moon. Why? Jett asks. Nature possesses unarguable truths. It is objective, unbiased, without agenda. Thus, it was something they could trust. They could find true north without having to wade through false readings. Now, to begin with, none of their learning came from textbooks. It was all directly observed and verifiable. Knowledge was liberating and addictive, and soon they became so adept at the natural sciences that they were able to build a picture of what life looked like. Through this process, they became in touch with their own nature and knew what nourishes and what poisons, such as their parents. From there they found their worth and their place in this world, and it didn't matter what their parents said to them, as they could apply the principles that they learned through their connection with nature. Now, before they believe anything, they ask themselves, is it observable? Is it verifiable from different angles? Is it unbiased and without agenda? I don't even know what you're saying. I'm saying connection and critical thinking are the vaccines to all the ills of the world. Vaccines don't do much if only a few of us are getting the shots. I know. That's why the world needs people like you. I don't have the vaccine. Jett, compassion and empathy are the highest forms of critical thinking. There is more power in your heart than you can imagine. And there are more haters on the internet than you can count. Emily shrugs. Superman can stop any criminal, but not even he can stop criminality. But could you imagine him chucking it all in and moving back to Krypton? Krypton was destroyed. That's why he came to Earth. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Could you really stop now? Jett drops his head. We locked eyes. That was the problem. He opens the door and hops out. Chapter 9. Jett looks out of his bedroom window. It's a clear winter's night. Only now does he notice it's a full moon. His backlog of homework has spread over his desk like cancer. But he cannot bring himself to sit. He puts on his thermals and matte black full-face helmet and jumps on his bike and gets into a rhythm. It's soothing riding in the cold, spinning his legs so that his mind doesn't have to. But that doesn't last long, for there are so many questions. What to say to Olive? What is going on for Wendell? If there are any jumpers tonight? And where to look next for the potential school shooter? As he nears the bridge, he sees a huddle of people. His tyres crunch the gravel, and the group turns and faces him, as if they've been waiting for him. He slows down and adjusts his eyes to the darkness. Then he sees him. Jett jumps off his bike, leans it against a lamppost, and walks to the crowd. Hector takes a few steps towards Jett and smiles. He extends his hand, Jett takes it, and Hector pulls him in for a hug. Their hearts entwine. It's exactly what Jett needs. "I've missed you, little brother." "I'm Hector, by the way," he says. "I've missed you too," Jett says. "How are you?" Jett asks. "Doing all right. My sister, not so good." "I'm sorry to hear that." Hector nods. "Tough getting the right help." "Can I do anything?" Jett asks. "I reckon you can. But look, there's some peeps I want you to meet." Hector flicks his head towards the people on the bridge. "I saw what happened on Main Street today. I sent it to my boys. They didn't understand, so I told them what you do." "What do I even do?" "You kidding me?" "No. Mate, I don't know. But after I hugged you, I just felt like my soul had a place to go." 5 rough-looking grown men stand in a line as if they're about to meet the Queen. "This is Quinny, Loz, Brownie, Billy, and Ahmed," Hector says. Jett goes to shake hands with Quinny. Nah. You gotta get the whole experience." So Quinny throws his arms wide open, and Jett doesn't hesitate to go for the hug. Again, it's magic. After the bonding, Jett moves up the line and embraces each man. "Nice work today, kid," Brownie says. "Looked like it could have been a bloodbath out there," he continues. "People are calling me a Nazi sympathiser," Jett says, looking down. "You're a sympathiser. Full stop," Hector says, stepping closer for emphasis. Thank you, Jett says, voice breaking and tears streaming. Being understood is like receiving permission to exist. We ain't pretty either. Everyone has written us off too. Not even my confessor likes to hear what I gotta say. But you can't shut down hell without talking to the devil, can you? Anyway, kid, I knew you'd come. You know, full moon and all. But you go home. We got the jumpers covered." "What? Really?" "The Gap's no place for a kid. Every full moon, me and my boys will be out here keeping an eye on things. We've lost a few ourselves, you know. You go do what you gotta do." "Thank you. You've made my day. Really." "Hey buddy, can you see and hear out of that thing okay? I saw what happened today. Watched it a couple of times. Seems to slow you down," Billy says. Jett instinctively touches his helmet. "Necessary evil, I guess. I used to work for a MotoGP team. Maybe I could ring around, see what's out there." Okay. So how do I contact you?" Jett thinks for a beat. "Look up Raven On. You'll find me there." Billy nods. Jett embraces each of them before getting back on his bike. "Hang on a second," Hector calls out. Jett turns his head. "What do we call you, little bro?" In bed with a clearer head, Jett pulls out his phone. He goes to Raven On and begins typing. "I thought I'd better clear something up. I went to the protest today. I came from the sidelines, not any one side. I saw a large man charging towards a young girl. I tried to help. Someone from the man's side came. And that's where the controversy starts. People have been calling this a stunt to get sympathy for Nazis. It wasn't. Raven says it should be Punch a Nazi Day. It shouldn't. She called me a Nazi sympathiser. I'm not. I can't say I know how the world works, but I know that our family is in trouble, and that standing behind barricades throwing Molotov cocktails at each other isn't going to help. So, you know what? Before you light them, give me your fire. I don't care about the colour or intensity of what's burning inside you. I don't care what is fueling it, and I don't care who you're planning on throwing it at. Give me your fire, and I'll wear the flame. Give me your fire, and I'll hear your pain. Yours truly, Carbonman.